that you do from all of us here at GTV Breakfast. So on this segment, we are talking labor issues. And despite the suspension of the strike by organized labor, the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, insists that the board of SNIT be dismissed. And they are saying that although the proposed sale has been terminated, the contentious deal has exposed a significant failure in SNIT's decision-making and accountability. And the UTAG feels that it has demonstrated a clear disconnect from public opinion and a lack of understanding of the collective wisdom. We want to understand what this means in detail. So on our Zoom platforms, we have some gentlemen joining us and another on our phone line to digest this issue further. The General Secretary of UTAG is Dr. Eliasu Mumuni, and he is on our Zoom platform. Mr. Mumuni, thank you for making time to join us for this conversation. Also on our Zoom platform is Mr. Bernard J, who is the General Secretary of the Public Sector Workers Union, and he will also be sharing his voice on this. Mr. J, thank you for making time. And on our phone lines, we'll be joined by Mr. Austin Game, who is a labor consultant. Mr. Game will be sharing his thoughts with us as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for making the time to be a part of this conversation. I'll start with you, Tag, on this, since you are the one leading the charge asking for the board to be dismissed. You think it's not enough that the sale has been terminated? You are insisting that the board should also go. Why insist on that?
Good morning, and good morning to your cherished viewers. It's a pleasure being on this platform. Yes, UTAG is still insisting on its earlier position that the board and management must go. We've not changed our rendition, we've not changed our position. And basically, as you have read out, the issues are very clear. We really wouldn't have been to this point if SNIT and its management had listened to organized labor. When the general public and civil society started crying and asking that they should be slow, they should put a stop, they should consult, they should engage, they were adamant. Up until a point when MPRA really asked for a pause to it, it was still the same. Fast forward with a threat to a nationwide strike, we had SNIT and its management come in to cease or terminate the engagement or the transaction. For us, yes, it's a welcome news. Organized labor is very happy. UTAG is extremely happy with the termination. And we are very happy with the 1 month ultimatum given to SNIT for a broader dialogue and engagement with organized labor and other key stakeholders who will have a say or stake in the issues and operations of SNIT. And for us, with our call, we still insist because we think that if there was any other critically strategic decisions, innovations, approaches that would have put to bear on the operations of SNIT, in order that these challenges we are experiencing now wouldn't be there, that should have been done long since. And since we are still now recounting problems upon problems with what is happening to SNIT, it means typically that if this board can exit and allow for a new set of people with ideas and strategies to come on board, we think that will be the new and a better way of engaging with this challenge as we experience it now.
Doc, what's UTAG's interest in this? I've heard reports, and I'll take your response on that, that UTAG, as University Teachers Association of Ghana, you do not contribute to SNIT. I've read that you have your own pension scheme, the Ghana University Staff Superannuation Scheme is what I've heard. So what's your interest really in this, if indeed that is true?
I'm happy I'm on GTV, the station of the nation, to communicate to everyone across the country. That is not true. It's a propaganda. We have close to 30% of UTAG, fraternity contributing to SNIT. For us, even if it's just one individual, one university professor contributing to SNIT, that alone is enough for us to call for this. And to the extent that we have about 30% of us being on that platform, those are the people who are calling that we are not. Of course, we have our own superannuation scheme that we operate. We call it the GOS. Yes, we also have a chunk of us who are on it. Typically, let me give you an example. The University for Professional Studies, typically, majority of them are on Senate. We have the case of UNIMAC. We have the case of UDS, Legon. Majority and many of us still contribute to Senate. And so, granted, even if we are not on Senate, as a key stakeholder who are into knowledge production and management of this country, shouldn't we really have a say as to how the governance process of a bigger institution like Senate should go? Should we stand aloof and say this, which is a national issue, UTAC, should stay off? The call is made on arrival. And I'm very glad that we are putting a rejoinder to this particular propaganda, going around on a wider platform such as GTV.
Right. Let me bring the PSWU into this and engage Mr. J for a moment. Mr. J, yesterday, Organized Labour, after the crunch meeting, issued a statement that the strike should be called off and for workers to resume today. What next is the step to be taken, considering the 1 month ultimatum? And I'll get into why a 1 month in a short while, but now the strike is off. What's happening now?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners, and good morning to my brother, Dr. Eliasu. It's good to have you. We are all Organized Labour, and we are all together in this. Directly to your question, yes, we thank all our members who made sure that this action we took was successful. And yes, we have called off the strike. Every worker is expected back at work today. And I know every worker is back at work doing their work, what they do in the spirit of patriotism to support the growth and development of this country. And we are happy about that. Some of us thought that we shouldn't have gotten to this place anyway. But if people who were in charge and who were to take these decisions knew that they could have taken this decision, then they shouldn't have waited. Given the kind of stakeholder engagement and social partnership and calls from other stakeholders and civil society for them to listen to us and do the needful, for which failure has resulted in the action we took. Definitely, we also believe that in other jurisdictions, nobody even needed to call on anybody to resign or to step down. People should have honorably, by this time, tendered in their own resignation.
Do you support UTAC's call for the SNIT board to be dismissed and for management to also be sacked?
If I may just land, I was making a point that what even brought us to this point was not necessary in the first place. And in other jurisdictions, people would have by themselves tendered in their resignation. Now, you did ask why 1 month notice. We had a choice whether to continue with the strike until all our issues related to SNIT are addressed, some of which Dr. Eliasu and UTAC has already expressed. There are many other pertinent issues, including the kind of pension pay our people take when they go home, contributions to SNIT, the governance structure and mechanism of SNIT as it stands now, where the workers whose money it is, on whose behalf investments are being made, do not have a majority say in what goes on. All those things are issues. The Bediako report that came in 2008 that led to the introduction of the new pension scheme had other recommendations, which I can tell you up until now, we are in 2024, have still not been implemented. We have been working around to work with every government that comes into power to see how we can resolve these things. But we have realized that our social partnership and stakeholder engagements are being taken for granted. And therefore, we had a choice whether to continue the strike until all these issues are addressed, or we give ourselves some time to address them.
Okay, Mr. J, so you're referring to
we are responsible citizens. It is not in our interest for the country to grind to a halt. So we decided to give the 1 month notice for SSNIT and any other interested stakeholder to start engaging us immediately.
Mr. J, I want us to unpack the issues one after the other. So if you would, let's unpack the issues one after the other. You're saying that you support UTAG's call for the board to be dismissed. Organized labor is represented on that board. Are you suggesting that all the representatives of organized labor on the board be dismissed together with the others who are not organized labor reps on the board?
Well, thank you very much. We have discussed these issues. There are things that I cannot put on air right now, because at a point we were even calling for our members on the board to leave the board. Because if we are not going to be listening to, and we know the representations they are making on the board on behalf of workers, this flawed deal, the flaws in the deal, our members on the board told the board in their board meetings that they cannot agree to this thing. And it is the refusal and the insistence, the board knowing very well that organized labor does not have majority on the board, and thought that they could just have their way. That is what has resulted in this. So I wouldn't want to put certain information on air now. We have given SSNIT 1 month. When they come and engage us, and what we are asking for is done, then we can have our way forward. But otherwise, I can tell you for a fact that we were even going to withdraw our members from the board if they won't listen to us. Then what is the essence of us being on the board? But please, let's be careful. All these things have legal and governance implications. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
But we as organized labor want to take decisions that will inure to the benefit of our workers. We want to make sure that how SSNIT money is invested, how SSNIT money is managed, how our pension issues are dealt with is done in such a way that it will inure to the benefit of the ordinary worker. So please, the fact that it's UTAG which is mentioning something, UTAG is fully with organized labor. And we have agreed as organized labor that we are giving SSNIT 1 month. All these issues will be discussed at that level. If we have understanding, everything will go fine. But if we don't have understanding, and we have to all come out as organized labor to call for the dissolution of the board, be rest assured, we will do that.
Right. So then my next question to you, again, back to you, Mr. J, would be the directive which we heard was given by the NPRA, given the go-ahead for this to continue. The minister on the floor of Parliament told the House that approval had been given by the regulator, which is the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. So why are you venting your anger at only SSNIT and not the regulator that we are told gave the approval for this sale of the 60% shares to go on?
Thank you very much, my sister. That's a very good question. We have a strategy on how we want to deal with this whole SSNIT issue and NPRA. I have not seen any communication from NPRA yet. I don't know what analysis or what audit they did to come to that conclusion, and therefore I wouldn't want to say anything about that for now. What I can say for sure, that we will come to NPRA. We will come to NPRA because we need to understand on what basis they are giving that advice or that approval. There have been issues raised as to whether they even have the right to give that approval or whether it lies within their domain to give that approval. What we know they do is that they have come out with some guidelines which all pension, especially Tier 2 and others, as to our investment portfolios, the limits, the cap, to ensure, as the law gives them the mandate to. But to say SSNIT wants to do an investment and they are approving it, all those things are things we are looking into. At the appropriate time, we will come to them. Immediately, it is SSNIT that is receiving our contributions. It is SSNIT that is managing our contributions. It is SSNIT that is dealing with the investments that our contributions have been used to make. And that is why our focus is on SSNIT right now. When we enter into the discussions and debate at the right time, the NPRA angle will come in. I can assure you, we have not left it. We have discussed this at our yesterday's crunch meeting. It came up. But as I said, we are also strategic in how we deal with our issues. So we'll come to NPRA. For now, where the money is and how it is being managed is of paramount interest. We want to deal with that one immediately, and we'll come to the regulator later.
Right. Let's bring Dr. Eliasu back into the conversation on UTAG's position on what steps, if any, should be taken against the regulator NPRA. Dr. Eliasu, I know you heard what your colleague, Mr. Jay, said about the regulator. We are told in Parliament that they gave the order that the sale should go ahead. How does UTAG intend to work or liaise with the NPRA going forward on this matter?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the call to question on the authorities and reliefs offered to SSNIT by NPRA is something that we've taken notice of as a stakeholder. That NPRA give SSNIT a clean sheet to move ahead with the transaction when organized labor, who are the 100% contributors to that fund, insisted that that particular transaction should not, be given light. And going by that meant that NPRA erred. They probably would have looked at other dimensions of regulation, but without recourse to the call and position of organized labor. Not only that, civil society and the general public. Like my colleague said, the focus on the NPRA will come. But at the moment, we want to drive our energy on the board and management of SSNIT, that within the 4 weeks window of it, our expectation is to have that dialogue and engagement that will lead to an address of a litany of the issues that is being raised by organized labor to SSNIT. Already gleaning through the media, we all know the challenges SSNIT is facing. Some from government refusing to actually pay back some of the monies owed or borrowed, and then majority from SSNIT itself for investments that are not actually yielding the required return. And so these other things are critical things that we as organized labor will like to deal with SSNIT in such a way that within this 1 month period of grace, they should come forth with some other explanations and strategies that attempt to address the issues we've put to bear.
So, Dr. Eliasu, there are suggestions out there on the 1 month ultimatum. There are suggestions out there that the time frame appears to give an opportunity for a conversation to reverse the termination of the process of sale of the 60% shares in the 4 hotels. Is that the case?
As far as we are concerned, with regards to this termination, it's done, completely done. It won't be tomorrow or yesterday again that SSNIT will go back to that particular transaction.
So the ultimatum that you are giving for the 1 month to address all outstanding issues, so many issues that bedevil SSNIT that is affecting the contributors. And so for us as a contributor, we think that this window offered to SSNIT is good enough for them to engage with us, to looking at the issues one after the other in such a way that the trust build-up process will come back. You see, because you really can't renege on that particular trust responsibility. Forgetting the key contributor and then moving ahead, I don't know what type of investment advice would have come, but putting that type of
a blind lens to our core, and only to turn around and say that we are a little bit unfair is actually not good enough. And we think that the window is good. They should come and then make sure that within that 1 month period, all other issues are addressed. Other than that, the position we hold as to the board and management going, we as UTAG, as part of the broader organized labor, we still stand by that. And that we as UTAG, we have about 30% of our members contributing to Senate. And that even if it's one person alone, we have that locus to stand on to ask for this fiduciary responsibility.
So let me ask Mr. J this. Is one of the issues of organized labor the personality involved in the case? Is it because it is Dr. Brian Acheampong? Is it because of who he is? That's why you are resisting? Or is it for another reason, this call to terminate the process, which has now been heeded to? Mr. J, is it because of the personality involved?
All right. Thank you very much, my sister. In the first place, we are looking at the deal, the content, okay, the agreement, what is being done. Has it been done properly? There is something in there which is showing that even if it is not the personality, even if it's not Rock City, and it is Movenpick or Golden Tulip or mention any hotel that is interested, or even any business that is interested. What we are saying is that the deal is flawed. That is number one. Number two, the personality. Yes, why should state ministers or people who have been given responsibility to make sure that our country runs well, turn a blind eye, the assets are run down, then they turn around and sell it to themselves? We think ethically and morally there are issues. There are ethical and moral issues here, and society frowns on that. My sister, I can give you a litany of state assets, bungalows of state officials that has been sold overnight. And then we come back and we say the state should look for money to either build or rent apartments for these state officials. Then why did we sell the existing ones? There's a lot of looting and sharing in the system, which we think is unacceptable. So for us, it is also an issue that the personality also involved and the deal also being flawed. Is it that it's an intentional process to run down or just give a reason that these hotels are not doing well? My sister, apart from what we've heard, that the hotels are not doing well and have not been making profit for this number of years, who has told us why they are not doing well? We have not been told. If the reason for which they are not doing well, the solution you are proposing does not fit it, then the solution is wrong. We are saying that we all need, Ghanaians need to know. Now it's a matter of public knowledge. SSNIT management should come and the board and tell us what the cost of the non-performance of these hotels are. And that may even justify some of the costs like UTAG has raised for even the board and management.
Right. Mr. J, behind...
To be looked at on that error and the reasons why they also objected to some of the deals. So these are the issues. It's not only about the personality, it's about the deal being flawed, and secondly, the ethical and moral issues of our public officials, ministers, state officials, selling or sharing public assets to themselves.
Right. Let me bring labor consultant Austin Game into the conversation. He's joining on our phone lines. Good morning, sir. Thank you for making the time to add your voice to this conversation. You heard what the PSWU has said and what UTAG is saying. What's your position on what is currently going on? Labor has called off the strike, but they are saying that there's a 1-month ultimatum for stakeholders to sit and discuss the real issues on the table. To you, what issues would those be, Mr. Game?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've heard what my friends and colleagues from Labour have been saying, and I think I'm in full support of what they've already said. All I have to add is that SSNIT has not been very fair to the contributors to the scheme. We should all know by now that contributors are the actual owners of SSNIT, and they are also the owners of the money and the assets SSNIT is holding in trust. And therefore, it is inappropriate for a very deep-seated decision like this to be made on behalf of the contributors without their verifiable knowledge. And so I'm in full support of what Organized Labour has done so far and what they intend to do in the very near future. We have to take SSNIT through a complete transition to a level where we'll get the benefit of the reasoning behind the setting up of SSNIT in the first place. Let me hasten to add that during the time we were writing the pension scheme, of which I had the privilege of being one of the commissioners, we separated the second tier and confirmed the third tier because we wanted SSNIT to perform better than they used to, do. And so that at the end of the day, the people who become the most vulnerable people, that is pensioners, they will be in a position to earn some reasonable monthly income because SSNIT would have been freed from paying lump sum to the people at this point in time. So that is the intent behind it. And that's the reason why we even went ahead to ask for an independent regulator like the NPRA to have a supervisory jurisdiction over both SSNIT, the second tier, and the third tier. So I am amazed.
And it's the NPRA in this case that we are told by the Minister in Parliament approved that this sale should continue. From what you're saying, does that mean that confidence has been lost in that regulatory role that the law imposed on the NPRA? Has trust been lost there?
Well, even though the minister is a good friend and I have a lot of respect for him, and I think he knows, but I was highly disappointed because I expected him to call the regulator to order, by not going to Parliament to announce what he announced. I was outside this country. When I read it, I was shocked because the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations is the most important ministry, regardless of how we think about health, we think about agri, we think about everything. The socio-economic well-being of the people of this country is hanging around the neck of the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations. So they shouldn't even in the first place. They should have called them to order. But nonetheless, because we are operating in a partisan political atmosphere, maybe that's why they couldn't even think far.
How do we ensure autonomy for SSNIT when appointments to positions like the board and sometimes even CEO of SSNIT is not something that other people have a voice on? It's usually a government appointment. How do we make sure that these problems that we are identifying because of this issue is resolved in a way that will ensure that SSNIT is positioned firmly to make its own decisions without interference?
Maybe let's make it for once right. Now, the revolution that is going on now as far as SSNIT matters are concerned. Part of the transition they have to go through is to stop the presidency from appointing the CEO and even the board in the form in which it is. We must have a greater say. We must, in the sense that we are the owners of SSNIT and not government. And therefore, the newly reconstituted board in the very near future will be the one selecting a minimum of about 5 people to be sent to the Public Services Commission to be interviewed. One of them who comes tops with the mind of pension management will become the Secretary General, the Director General of SSNIT. The next and the third become the 2 deputies. So they are answerable to the new board and not to the president, and not to Minister of Labour, or as the case may be. The board ultimately must be the one determining the way forward. Hotels are always profitable. And my company, we are consultants to notable hotels in this country. I won't mention their names. They are always profitable. And no hotel goes down. And if it's going down, they change the management.
That's one of the arguments that's been proffered, that the hotels are not profitable, for which reason some investment was needed. And that's why this matter came to being. Are we also discussing profitability and how to turn the fortunes of the hotel around in these conversations as we call for the heads of the board members and the CEO?
Of course. Not just the hotels, all assets belonging to SSNIT must be profitable. They must have a return on the investments agenda that will be looked at from time to time by a board that is seized with knowledge and understanding and the skill. People who know about how to create a real, true nature of objectivity, and people who are very strategic in the management system. And so the hotels can never be unprofitable. I repeat, can never be unprofitable. What they are doing perhaps was either intentionally done to run it down over the years to enable them to sell it. I'm not looking at the personality of Brian Achampong. He's a very nice gentleman. So I'm not looking at his personality. I'm looking at the objectivity of the things that ought to be done. So I think that they've not been fair to us, and the board will have to be changed, completely dismantled. We must change the MPRA, completely dismantled. The management system is need to have to be revolutionized. And we must have the Director General, First Deputy, Second Deputy for Operations and for Administration, all of them properly confirmed by the Board of Directors has to be reconstituted. No longer the President of Ghana, now and tomorrow. And for now, it's a kind of the president is on his way getting out of office. He should not make any major decision on behalf of Ghana again as far as SSNIT is concerned. He can make his decision on other things, but when it comes to SSNIT, the contribution is not his, it's ours. We must determine what is good for us.
Let me go back to Dr. Elias on this. Eliasu, let's assume for a moment that these engagements that organized labor is asking for is done, and it comes out in those meetings and series of meetings that indeed perhaps the right decision that had to be taken had been made, but because of the public outrage that greeted the announcement, it's been terminated. Would you back down on the call for the board, the CEO, and as the labor consultant said, first deputy speakers, first deputy chairperson or CEO's position at SSNIT should be relooked at? Would you back down if you find in those meetings that the right decision had been made to save the hotels from dying?
Yeah, thank you. So I think that when it comes to issues of the 4 facilities that SSNIT is selling its shares, we've seen documents, we've seen literature indicating that they've been very profitable. In fact, we have to be convinced otherwise. Not only are they profitable, they are profitable more than other investments of Senates. That probably should a focus should be on them for either restructuring, refinancing, or possibly a sale that their attention is not on. And so we've taken notice of how unprofitable or unperforming these 4 hotels have been by the rhetorics provided. However, from the other side data we've also seen, we also think otherwise, that it is never. So we don't even expect that probably after engagement, there may be a change of position when it comes to either this being the best decision or otherwise. It will not even get there. Right. Oftentimes, like my senior other colleague said, it is all about looking, unconcerned with so little offer being made for these things to be run down. And then at the end, some targeted individuals are offered the opportunity to take it up and say, oh, okay, these things were non-performing, and as such, we are coming on board to restructure and make it grow. What will happen that a private sector led will make these 4 vibrant hotels be active and then provide us with the right return on investment that a public sector like us, led by Senate being the majority share, will actually not offer for these 4 hotels to make profits. What at all will that be? And that is why we have made a proposal that as UTAC, if it is about the human capital and human resource that they need in terms of supporting, we can make our human resources available to Senate. Whether within this 1 month or any other time, we as UTAC, we have the men and women who will offer them the right support if they so need.
Right. Let me pick
other than sell, because just like my other colleague said, we've had the problems of state lands being sold across all the regions, state lands, state bungalows, and now everything public. And who are they being sold to? They are sold to individuals who are politically exposed. They are sold to individuals who really are not like you and I. We shouldn't even, who will publicly develop and establish enterprises for others to just come and then all they do is to sell.
But there are always viable public-private partnership agreements that inure to the benefit of both sides. So it's not blanket in all cases to suggest that when certain companies are handed to private hands, there's always something fishy going on there. I think it's fair to make a distinction in that.
If it is that private-public partnership agreement, why not? We can look into the agreement, the structure, the scope, the risk, the investments expected, and then make a decision. Yeah. Not that. We are just looking at this penchant taste for selling everything public, from lands to bungalows to anything that the state is involved.
I had one question for Mr. Adjei. I wanted Mr. Adjei to have a word on whether or not Labour will back down if you go into those meetings and realize that they were right, and perhaps you organized Labour went ahead of itself by declaring this strike, which has now been called off. Would you back down? Basically, is what I'm asking. PSW.
My sister, I can tell you for a fact, with what we know, information available to us, is that this deal, which we have kicked against and has been rightly terminated, there's nothing that will make it right, that will make them right. I mean, it's done with. That's why they have terminated it. Moving forward, when we go into these discussions, we are going to look at other issues that we have mentioned, including the governance. And I was happy the way my senior Mr. Game spoke about it. All those issues are on the agenda for us. We want to engage them, and it's going to be serious discussions. If there's no understanding, I am telling you, workers will come back. If it is strike, laying down our tools that will make people be responsible and act responsibly, then that is what we will do.
Right. Let me pick the final words
we want to believe that this engagement will produce the outcome that will be beneficial